Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to Untapped Healing, where we help you tap into your healing potential. In today's episode, we're going to be diving deep on a very special topic: acne. But not just acne, the mitochondria's role in acne. If you're interested in eliminating your acne, you need to understand what role the mitochondria plays. And then you gotta make sure that you are doing the things that allow you to have prosperous mitochondria. Because if you wanna live in a reality where your skin is flawless, then you need to make sure you are taking good care of your mitochondria. You gotta be taking good care of your mitochondria. So let's get right into it. Your mitochondria is the energy powerhouse of every cell inside your body. You need to make sure that the energy powerhouse of your body is being fueled properly. And then there's certain foods that really help with the mitochondria. If you are interested in having flourishing mitochondria, you need to make sure that you are eating foods rich in magnesium. Here's a whole bunch of foods that are rich in magnesium. Now that you understand what foods you need to consume on a physical level, I want you guys to understand the greater level of your mitochondria. Like this key point right here will literally change your life forever once you fully internalize it. I want you to listen to this doctor really quickly.
Field is generated and how it's designed to alter as current that comes across the inner mitochondrial membrane in the form of electrons. And all food, in fact, everything in the environment, okay, everything, this functionally comes down to electrons. So if you don't believe me, most of your people listening to this, and I know everybody who's a doctor knows this, if you remember back to basic chemistry in high school, they said that just the change of electron shell changes chemistry everywhere. That's what valence chemistry is all about.
So electrons are really important. So talk about how do you affect, or how do you change or reduce the oxidation of these electrons? Because oxidation is essentially a loss of these electrons. That's what causes the rusting nails out in the brain.
That's too far down the path. You need to understand something even more simple. How do we program electrons? Here's the interesting thing. Everything in the world, everything has electrons in it, okay? So how do we program electrons naturally? We do it by sunlight frequencies. In other words, an electron becomes excited, and when it gets excited, it goes up to this state. The difference between this state and this state is the redox potential. That's what you just asked me, but you have to realize what excites the electron first is the key. And the interesting thing, if you look at a mitochondria as it's laid out, cytochrome 1 and cytochrome 5, which is the ATPase, that redox potential is designed to go from about -400 all the way to 0 where oxygen is. So it's the same effect. So what is life's real goal? Life's real goal is it's figured out how to take an electron after it's been programmed, as it falls to the ground state, to capture the light energy that programs that electron. And that's what makes a tomato's electron different than a cucumber, than a steak that you just ate. And there is a frequency, a Rosetta Stone frequency in everything in our environment. And your mitochondria pays attention to that. That's the reason why I told you earlier that we're designed to pay attention to the environment, and it's not in an endogenous defect within us. The defect is created because there's a disconnection in the system in terms of how it's able to connect with nature. And the reason that's occurred for our species is because we think all the things that we come up with are really great because we don't understand the owner's manual, what's built into a mitochondria and how it works.
So how are we applying this with the sunlight? Is there an optimal time of day? What's exposure look like? What part of the body is getting it? Are you wearing the glasses all day long to block out the blue light? How are you applying this so you can get the maximal electron benefit in your life?
Well, Justin, you have a pretty interesting perspective already, because when we first started talking, I was outside. You noticed I wasn't wearing these.
Right.
You asked me to come into my office to do this because you would get better audio, and I was kind of like not terribly into that because I told you I was up all night on trauma call, and I just finished a big spinal reconstruction. So I've been inside. I missed the sunlight today. So I wanted the natural sunlight on me. I don't want to be around any blue light right now because of what I had to do last night. So what happened to me last night the blue light that I was around from the operating room and everything else took my respiratory proteins and stretched them out. And see, here's the interesting thing. Those 5 respiratory proteins, cytochrome 1, 2, 3, 4, and the ATPase, which is cytochrome 5, the further they get stretched out, the less electrons can tunnel, meaning the current drops precipitously. And just so you know, what is the linkage between that? And this is very important for everybody to understand. Every 1 angstrom increase decreases electron tunneling between those by a factor of 10. So anytime you're in blue light, for example, I'll give you a perfect one for right now. Since we're talking on Skype, you're on a computer monitor and you have no protection on your thyroid gland and you have no protection in your eye. You are creating adrenal fatigue and hypothyroidism as we speak. And I don't care how much medicine you try to take to offset that. If you do that long enough, it ain't going to work. And the functional medicine paradigm says, no, if I replace this, I can get you back to normal. And I'm going to tell you, epic fail. Why?
Okay, so this is good. I'm learning a lot of new things. I typically do the blue light sunglasses at night to lower the cortisol and raise the melatonin at night.
Let me tell you why that's a bad thing. Let me tell you why it's a bad thing. Do you know there's a thing in physics where they talk about degrees Kelvin and the color temperature? You know what? When the sun rises in the morning, do you know what the Kelvin is when it rises? It's 1800 Kelvin. Right now, what you're looking at is 5700 to 6500 Kelvin. Now, here's where it's good news. You asked me to call you at noon Central Standard Time, where we both are. That's when solar light is at 5700 Kelvin. Do you know what it is around 5 o'clock in our Central Standard Time? It's 16,000 Kelvin. So here's the point that I'm trying to make to you. That change in Kelvin adapts over the day. Your pituitary gland, via the hypothalamic pituitary axis, that's the Rosetta frequencies that turn it on. That's where circadian biology comes. That's the reason why your testosterone is supposed to be highest at 10 a.m. But if you do what I had to do last night or what you're doing right now, you're ruining that. You're also ruining your thyroid, because what people don't realize, our thyroid's exposed. Blue light penetrates all the way in to the fat layer. That is actually where the arterioles are. That's actually a problem. So when you're inside, I always want people covered up because I don't want that effect. Now, when you go outside and you have this exposed, that's a really good thing. Why? Because 42% of sunlight is near infrared. It's infrared A. It's 42%. Do you know why? This is what we talked about before. Cytochrome C oxidase is a red light chromophore, meaning that it works in that window. And here's the biggest issue. What's the biggest red light chromophore that we have in our body? Water. And that's the reason why cells are 99% water by molecular size. And what surrounds a mitochondria? It's called the Minos layer. That's spelled M-I-N-O-S. What surrounds the ATPase as it spins? Water. Do you know there's very few things thermodynamically in the world that run with 100% efficiency? But guess what we found in the last 2 years?
What?
The ATPase, when it's surrounded by exclusion zone water, spins at 100% efficiency. See, that is the stuff that people need to learn in functional medicine to understand how to optimize people. Because if you take someone, say, who's an IT worker, is 12 hours in the basement of a hospital, inputting data for the hospital, and they have, retinal tears, their RPE in their eyes thicken, their glasses look like Coke bottles, and they have all these different things like adrenal fatigue, hypothyroidism, migraine headaches. You cannot fix that person with anything in your office until they realize that they are suffering from a light deficiency problem. And that's the key, because that's the levers that turn on this anterior semiconductive circuit that goes from your retina into your pituitary, and from your pituitary goes right into your brainstem to turn all these things on. And what controls them is the frequencies of light that are in there. See, we are beings of light, and people do not realize this. This is what the science of quantum biology has been teaching us over the last 100 years. But the problem is, if you don't read it, you don't realize what's already been published. And when I talk to people, people are really surprised to find out that this stuff is actually published. Like 10 years ago, I was crazier than batshit. Now you can go out and buy books about this and read about it and go, wow. Because I know when I went to dental school and I went to medical school, I never learned about any of it.
So what does this all look like from an application standpoint? Because I'm in the trenches seeing about 50 or 60 patients a week, and I'm trying to create diet and lifestyle applications, shift habits to make the person heal or help them essentially put their body into an anabolic state. So sunlight, walk me through your routine. What does that look like for you? Daily basis.
Let me just say this. If you remember the equation I gave you before about ATP for a day, and food is only 1/3. Let me ask you a question, just for third grade math. Does it make more sense to focus in on 1/3 or the 2/3?
Well, 2/3, of course. So you're focusing on the
2/3,
reducing the EMF, and then getting the sunlight, getting the right exposure.
Well, that's where the 2/3 come from, and and that's the point. The point is, it's kind of like Dave Ramsey. You know, always go for where the best bang for the buck is. And
totally.
I get very frustrated. You know, my members know my position on this. I don't think food is important as everybody else does. But the one aspect of food that's critically important is DHA, and it has to come from seafood, and it has to be, ordered in the SN2 position, because it has to be paramagnetic to get into the central nervous system and get into the peripheral nervous system, because guess what? That is the key chemical that controls the semiconductive pathway between the retina, the SCN, and the leptin receptor, and that's actually what controls the central retinal pathway that turns all the things on and off at the appropriate times that a functional medicine doctor wants and that an allopathic doctor wants, in fact, that a patient wants, but they don't know this. They don't know the level of complexity that's present there, and it's really important that we begin to teach people that. So, for example, the number one thing I tell everybody, the best healer in the world for anybody, I don't care what their disease is to make like the Sphinx every morning. What does that mean? Well, go Google a picture of the Sphinx. I want you to look in the direction of the sun, and I want all four extremities grounded. Why? Because when you're grounded, you have a complete wireless connection. It's no different than your coffee maker at home. Does it work as well when it's not grounded? The answer is no. The current is decreased. What do you know about current? Basic physics. Well, the slower the current, the less the magnetic flux is. What did we talk about before about that ATPase? We want that sucker spinning. We want it kicking out as much ATP as it can, because the more it kicks out, the less we eat. That's the real cause of obesity. It's not what everybody else believes. Oh, well, you're a fat slob and you eat too much and you don't exercise. Well, I got news for you. I got pretty damn good data that I actually ate more and exercised less and lost 150 pounds. And, I'm 12 years out now, and I still have 130 of those pounds off.
Now that you understand how important the sunlight is for your body to re-regulate itself, for your mitochondria to function at its highest capability, if you're interested in relieving your acne for good, you need to make sure you're getting out in the sun, giving your mitochondria what it needs to produce ATP for your body to be functioning at its optimal levels. Because if you're interested in your acne being gone forever, then you need to make sure that you are taking good care of your mitochondria, eating the foods rich in magnesium, and most importantly, getting out into the sun, staying out of blue light in the nighttime, making sure that you are in complete darkness, allowing your mitochondria to function properly. And I hope I just shed some light on maybe something that you weren't doing too well. Maybe you weren't taking good care of your mitochondria before. Maybe that's the reason why your acne isn't being alleviated properly. And maybe, just maybe, if you apply what you learned today in today's video, you might just see a whole new world. You might just see your skin where it was when you was a baby. If you're interested in that, just apply what you learned today. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys for sticking around for this long, and stay well.